Hey all, for those who aren't new here, you know I tend to focus more on the wand than anything else, so for this week's video I wanted to go into more of a deep dive into everything not wand Techter. Before I get into explaining that one, for those who are actually new here, my name's Ant and I make NGS videos weekly here on YouTube and also stream on Twitch. Check the description for that link. And of course, likes and subscribes are always appreciated. Like I was saying before, I tended to shy away when it came to anything I felt wasn't primarily Techter related, whether it be a non-gunner or force subclass, or a weapon that wasn't a wand or a talus. I've done some quick summaries in my earlier videos, but I didn't really explain with some detail as to why you should or shouldn't pick things, more leaving it to a try it and see what you think. I still believe it falls into personal preference, but I understand that there are some people out there who don't have the time and necessity to throw caution into the wind and try every weapon out. Though with the recent NGS interviews, you might still have plenty of time to get that figured out. If you haven't seen those, I'll link them in the description as well, but do note they're in Japanese, so if you can't read it, you'll need the assistance of something like Chrome to translate it for you. Tangent aside, I wanted to do a Black to Basics or Azalero style point-by-point guide, primarily for those who don't have time to commit to learning 12 different playstyles in the couple of hours a week that you do have. A couple things to note before we dig in. First, I'll mention pseudo main class later on, which is what I call something that only takes Techter as their main class for shifted D-pad and doesn't care about elemental charging techs or wands and taluses, focusing only on their subclasses' weapons and skills. Early fighter builds were like that because people thought that shifted D-band was better than overload. The other thing to note here is that the tips are overridden by the rule of cool. Nowhere am I going to say that you need to take this class. If there's something I don't recommend but you enjoy, then don't let me stop you. This list is strictly my opinion since there is no meta right now. There might be something where you can get a couple of extra points of damage, but unless you're soloing Gigantics or trying to beat records on solo UQ runs, there's not much of a difference to the average player. Let's get started with the subclasses themselves. Starting from the top of the list, there's Hunter. This class kept some of the same reasons why everyone ran Hunter in base PSO2. You have survivability with Flash Guard, Hunter Physique, and Omnidirectional Guard. If you're interested in a bit of stabbing, Volcraptor can be a nice boost if you weave partisan attacks in with your Wave Crash. Most of the downsides are nitpicky, but Hunter's Physique is an active skill which means it won't always be available, and you'll need to know when you'll need it before you need to use it. Omnidirectional Guard is sword only, since everything else is considered a parry. As previously mentioned, Volcraptor is a great DPS buff, but it falls off if you don't land hits with Partisan. So if you're in your down phase and trying to spam Wave Crash and Photon Blast, the risk of it falling off is there. Finally, Flash Guard only gives 1% damage reduction per point to subclasses, meaning you need to spend a lot of points in order to gain a minor amount of damage reduction. There are a few people that swear by this build though. If you're interested in learning more, I'd highly recommend Einhander, as he's put out a lot of content on being a Techter hunter and digs more into the whys and hows of the class combo. I'll have his channel linked in the description below. Next on the list is the first example of pseudo main classes, Fighter. Like I said before, people early on realized that their class skill wasn't as great as it could have been, and by taking shifted D-band, their sustained DPS could be better than their burst DPS. Then we found out the main class buff was changed from 5% in the global beta to 10%, but I'm not sure if this guidance has changed or not. For those looking at actually playing it as a Techter, Fighter does provide some benefits. The skill tree does provide a decent balance of damage and PP regen, with the caveat that the mob has to be downed. For those looking for a travel PA, the Knuckles PA double drive might be an option, but it drains PP super fast, so it'd be good in short bursts or as a gap closer. This wouldn't be the class for you if you're concerned about the fact that your DPS and PP gains involve a down boss. Though if you have a good group with the right weapons, that might almost be half the next Varus fight, so it's up to you. Moving on to the range classes, I know I've said don't take Ranger, but there are some reasons why you might want to. Back Condition is a skill that can help you counteract Gant's downsides, so it might be good if you're doing a glass cannon build and need to help make sure that you don't get frozen until you die. It does also help with PP regen since you can take the skill that reduces the cooldown on launcher weapon action. Finally, you have the PAs. Homing darts can help dramatically with wand AoE without having to swap to Talus and Spread Shot, and having Fear Eraser during down phases could be useful as well. Unfortunately, Blight Round's not usable by non-main classes, so you can't pull some of the same Techter Ranger tricks that were possible in base PSO2. Overall, there's not much here that I can say is worth taking over something else, but I'm not the one playing your game. Gunner, on the other hand, is a go-to subclass, but only for PP regen. The skill tree provides a decent amount of PP regeneration when you're attacking, which can allow for less normals before you have to start wave crashing again. The downside is that there's nothing useful outside of PP regen. This makes the tree super easy to build and max out, assuming you're not playing the class, or free to play and are willing to buy a second skill tree so you have a main and a sub tree. Our partner in techniques, and my personal favorite sub, Force provides a lot of great synergy, but also has some major hiccups. Force allows us to loosen the pressure on the Techter tree by letting us take Bardablot, Zombieclad, and the Talus skills in the Force tree instead. It also provides great natural PP regen, especially when you're using PP conversion. but natural PP is when you're either standing still or walking. So when you're dashing to the next wave in Mining Rig Defense or avoiding next Varus fireballs, you're not getting that PP back. It also keeps you pinned into a textile instead of changing things up slightly. Finally, when using rod skills, weapon management is a thing. Techs are cast based on the last weapon used, so rod skills won't work if you just use Wave Crash, and you also need to make sure you use the right counter for what you're trying to do instead of using your default button. Moving on to the complex classes, I guess is what they're calling the Braver and Bouncer. The only one we can truly look at now is Braver. This is the second class that could be used as a pseudo-main class, since most all of the skills only require the weapons. On the Techter side of things, there's not much here to work with other than the healing bonuses. Although the Rested bonus does not affect others with Rested fields, so that may also affect your decision. But since Brave Combat and the Guard skill work only with Braver weapons, you can't mix Techter PAs or Techs in the combo rotations, it might be better off passing on this one anyway. I did some testing and explanation of how I found these details in the video popping up in the upper right hand corner, if you're interested in seeing that side. I'm going to grab my corkboard and string for this next part and do some theorizing about Bouncer for a second. We got a preview of Bouncer this week, and I'm not sure if it's going to be helpful for Techers. In base PSO2, there was a lot of interaction with shift and D-band with jet boots and weapon actions, shifting different skills, so we might see a good reason to look at Bouncer as a subclass if he gives us buff to things like PP regen, shifted D-band potency, or maybe even elemental charge bonuses. From the preview we got, it looks like there'll be Bartablat and Zondiclad in the trees, so it might be that we use jet boots in the same way we'd use wands. We'll have to see when October finally rolls around. Wrapping up the subclasses, my personal picks would be for Gunner or Force, but you can see that all the classes do technically have something to add to your playstyle, which is why I say this is up to personal preference. The same thing applies for the next part, multi-weapons. These are going to be a little more rapid fire, with mostly quick bullet points, so I'll show this chart on the screen while going over my decisions. Again, this is based on my opinions and does not factor in damage number comparisons. If you have something that you love and I don't recommend, that's totally fine. In fact, if you do disagree on something, let me know in the comments what sold you on that combination. One thing to note though is with Talus you lose your shot if you're using a non-Talus ability, so you'll need to toggle back to what you were using before. Going down the list again, swords don't offer much that wands don't already have, but Twisting Zapper could provide a good AoE for wands for things like Mining Rig Defense where Zondi doesn't quite hit enough. Talus could use the guard that sword provides if they're caught in a bad position, but otherwise it's not much use for Talus. Wire Lance, on the other hand, helps you get exactly where you need to go with its weapon action. It comes highly recommended by players when you need to be somewhere quick. This is great for quick adjustment or placement, or getting to those elevated weak points. Other than the weapon action though, there's not much else outside of another AoE option for wands. Unfortunately, Partisan is on the opposite side of the scale. Now that Volcaraptor has been buffed, people are considering it, but like I mentioned before, it requires you to weave in Partisan attacks, which might not be best depending on your playstyle. I could see rotating between Wave Crash and Partisan normals though. This is the biggest example of why I say niche use is in my not recommended list, though I don't recommend it at all if you're running Talus. Twin Daggers doesn't add much at all, maybe a counter option for Talus, but I wouldn't go out of my way for it. Double Saber brings a bit to the table if you're going Tech or Fighter. You can use the Whirlwind from the Saber Photon arts for both Wand and Talus when using Spread Shot. Outside of that, Knuckles is another pass. You could use Double Drive as a gap closer if you're Tech or Fighter, but for the PP cost, Wire Lance is far superior. Katana is also one I wouldn't really recommend. If you're going Tech or Braver, you could use Iris Gale as an AoE and Brave Combat Finish would help add more DPS, but like the Partisan, it involves too much working around for me, and I'd probably go Volcaraptor over Brave Combat Finish anyway. Moving to the ranged weapons, like I said in the Ranger section, homing darts would be great for a wand user for AoE, but you need to have a Ranger set as a subclass. Talus doesn't really gain anything from it though. Overall, I'd personally pass. Launcher, on the other hand, is also in the top of the recommendations. Its weapon action provides a nice PP boost every minute or so, but if you have the Ranger sub, you can use Fear Racer as a nice bit of DPS during the down phases, assuming you have the PP for it. It seems like there's this pattern of bad good bad here, and twin machine guns are no exception. If you're using a wand, the PP regen from normal attacks would be good while you're actively chasing down enemies. If you're in melee range, wand normal 1 and 2 have better PP regen. I could also see using Aimless Rain as an AoE option. Of course, throw both those points out if you're using a Talus, since you have both of those things covered anyway. Bow has a similar reasoning for it, PP regen while mobile. Alas, you don't have an AoE option, so it has even less value than TMGs. Rod is one where we do start to break out DPS numbers, only because Wand and Rod are so similar. I don't recommend it if you're not a Force sub, but if you are, it can be useful with Photon Flare and Rod counter. On paper, Elemental Bullet and Text do less damage than Wand counter, but I know I'm personally able to do Rod counter more often when I'm playing on my Force alt than I do with Wand counter on my Techter main. So this one is more of a your mileage may vary sort of deal. Talus, on the other hand, gets a counter option when you're in a bad spot, and it's easier to fire off your Elemental Bullet than go back into whatever shot you were in previously, or keep spamming Text if you're so inclined. I'm going to combine Wand and Talus into one since they're both quality of life changes. Adding a Talus to your wand gives you easy access to Pillbox and Spread Shot if you want to use that instead of Furies or Zondi. But because they're so different in style, you're not getting much the other way around. It could be good for a wand counter if you find yourself in a bad place though. Breaking out the corkboard again for the last option, I feel like Soaring Blades might be the same as Twin Daggers, but might have some use for wands for PP regen with Photon Blades having the potential to offer that. I almost feel like Jet Boots may be an amazing tool for those who want to combine tech gameplay with the melee combat wand provides, but again, we'll have to wait and see. If you're curious about where I came up with this, I'll have my notes listed in the description below, with images available on my Discord. I also did some testing on stream a couple of weeks ago, and the VOD should still be available. That along with the live stream are available on Twitch, link also in the description. If you have any questions or comments, comment below and I'll get to it as soon as I can. I'd appreciate hitting that sub button if you're interested in more NGS content as well. Thanks again for watching, and I hope to see you next time. Have a good one.